Welcome to episode number 232, where I'm talking about how to manage stress during this chaotic time in the world and how we can use the elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth to manage the doshas of vata, pitta, and kapha. Really simplified information. So please stay tuned. Welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host, Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, which is the ancient healing tradition from India. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. And if you like the content, please be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast so the new episodes will automatically download for you. Also, you may want to check out my private Elements community, which is away from social media. It's a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, to support each other, and to continue the conversation from the podcast episodes. Check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab. And I hope to connect with you there. Thanks for listening. And now here's a new episode. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. It's me, Colette, today doing a solo episode because I really felt the need to talk about stress. And I don't have to tell you that we're living in challenging times and we're experiencing unprecedented atrocities happening in our world right now. And this is really resulting in a feeling of uncertainty and a real lack of stability in our foundational needs like that of safety and security. And I know in my own life and chatting with my friends and with clients, we're all feeling this underlying stress. And of course, this can really affect our body, our mind, our emotions, and our behavior. Now, our body can handle short-term stress. You know, if we're in danger, our body will go into fight or flight response where it will shut down all the non-essential systems like that of digestion and reproduction and sends the blood to the extremities so we can flight, run, or fight. However, if our stress is long-term, it can contribute to imbalances of the doshas, which may result in serious health concerns like that of high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, just to name a few. Now, I don't want to go on talking about the stressors in our world. We're all very aware of them. But what I do want to talk about is some great advice from Ayurveda on how to manage these stressful times. Now, Ayurveda teaches us that stress is a disturbance of the nervous system. And the nervous system is mainly regulated by the vata dosha. The vata dosha, as we know, is comprised of the space and air elements. And these elements are very subtle in nature. And therefore, because of that real subtle nature, they can go out of balance or become aggravated very easily. Now, when vata goes out of balance, it can result in the nervous system being overstimulated, which may result in things like a restless mind, so many thoughts going through your mind, spinning all the time, and therefore you may be finding it really hard to focus. You may be feeling overwhelmed, and this is due to the restless mind. You may experience procrastination. Now, this procrastination is not due to a lack of motivation. It's not laziness. It's just due to overwhelm, which is resulting in a lack of clarity. You may be experiencing anxiety. When vata is aggravated, the mind can have a tendency to go to the future. And so in the future, it's all this what if scenarios or worst case scenario thinking. And of course, this can then result in fear and nervousness and just like that general feeling of a lack of control. These senses may also become hypersensitive to loud noises. Therefore, you may feel on edge. When the space and air elements of Vata are elevated, when there's more of these elements, you may be feeling a sense of loneliness, a lack of connection with others, or feeling isolated. There can also be irregular energy and irregular fatigue. Basically, when Vata is imbalanced, it's irregularity in all the systems of the body. There could be irregularity in digestion, not getting hungry at certain times, irregularity in elimination, in reproduction. Your cycle may be off or may stop completely, lack of appetite or a really short hunger window, irregular bowel movements or constipation. And like I said, there can be scanty or lack of periods. There's lots of fatigue or irregular energy with Vata, but even with this fatigue, there can be difficulty sleeping as the nervous system is just too activated to sleep. Vata is responsible for all movement in the body, and so there may be excess movement when Vata is aggravated, and this could manifest like muscle twitching, tingling, spasms, moving pain around the body. The breath may also be affected with a Vata aggravation, resulting in breathlessness or hoarseness, a dry cough, or constriction in the throat and chest, and even that feeling of like a panic attack, that really tightness in the chest. So that's a list of just some ways that Vata can manifest when aggravated. And now I want to talk about what we can do. And I want to make this information as easy as possible, because the last thing we need to do when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed is have an onslaught of information. So I'm going to try to really simplify this today by talking about the elements. So as we know, Vata is made up of the space and air elements, and therefore it lacks the other three elements of fire, water, and earth. So in order to balance Vata, we need to bring in these elements. So the fire element will help Vata in regards to digestion. It will also bring warmth to Vata, which tends to be cold by nature with the space and air elements. And it will provide clarity and focus, because that fire element brings that sharpness, that clarity, and that intention setting. The water element will help Vata by keeping the body hydrated and lubricated. And the earth element will help Vata by grounding and nourishing the body and mind. Oftentimes when Vata is aggravated, that can be a very low body weight. So the earth element will help to increase tissues and also nourish those tissues or dhatus of the body. The element of earth is extremely important for Vata as it provides structure, and this is exactly what we all need to focus on when our outer structures, our outer foundations in the world are not so steady. So we can all really focus on this structure right now. And by focusing on our daily structure, this will provide us with a solid foundation day to day on which we can depend. So what does that look like? Well, when I'm working with clients, I tailor this information to their lifestyle and their constitution and so on. And therefore it varies. But today I'm going to give you advice. It's general advice, but certainly great advice from Ayurveda that will help us all during this time. So it's best to have consistency in sleeping and waking, in meal times also, as this will provide lots of structure and regularity, resulting then in regularity of sleeping, digestion, elimination, energy, and bring regularity to all the systems of the body. As I mentioned a moment ago, when Vata is aggravated, it tends towards irregularity in all the systems. So by putting ourselves on this daily structure, it can bring all those systems back into a regular pattern. Now, once we provide the body with structure, it will function in tune with nature, in tune with the circadian rhythms. If you're not familiar with the circadian rhythms, please check out podcast episode number 8 all the way back, where I spoke about the circadian rhythms. But for now, I want to break down what this structure looks like, break it down a little further. So let's start with the evening, because we really want to set Vata up for a good night's sleep. When Vata is aggravated, sleep issues arise, even insomnia. So what you want to start doing in the evening is winding down to calm the nervous system. And this will set us up for a good night's sleep. So ideally not working after 6 p.m. and relaxing during that kapha time of 6 to 10 p.m. So again, when I'm saying kapha time, vata time, pitta time during this information, all that is explained in that circadian rhythm episode number 8, if you're not familiar. So check that out. So ideally cutting off work after 6 p.m. and using that kapha time for what it's designed for. It's unwinding and preparing your body for sleep. So that could consist of being out in nature with the kids, if you have long daylight hours now, walking the dog, could be gardening, it could be creativity, it could be self-care or mindfulness practices. So all these activities will really help to ground vata and calm the nervous system. It's also very important to manage screen time, as this really activates the nervous system, and therefore that may mean getting off screens 60 to 90 minutes before bed. We want to make sure that our senses aren't overly stimulated, which is resulting in an overstimulated nervous system, which means when we turn the lights out, our body is not prepared to sleep because it was just stimulated in the past hour. So ideally, you're getting off screen 60 to 90 minutes before bed and then lights out by 10 p.m. before that second wind of pitta rises and gives you that extra energy, and you may have a hard time falling to sleep with that extra energy. Now that we're in bed and lights out by 10 p.m., we'll be ready to wake up even earlier. So ideally waking up before or with sunrise and having some time for yourself in the morning when it's quiet, maybe before the kids get up. I do think it's ideal for the vata dosha to have a gentle morning routine and slowly easing into the day. So if you have a high vata constitution or vata aggravation, I think it's good to take that time in the morning. So that may mean starting with the water element, with a warm drink to hydrate the body. Now, this warm drink is ideally water or maybe a herbal tea, but not coffee, as that's dehydrating and stimulating, the opposite of what we want to balance vata. So a hot water will stimulate the digestive fire and really get that digestive system online and ready for breakfast. And also taking this time to read or write or practice mindfulness or gentle yoga. If you have a high vata constitution, you know that you do not like to be rushed in the morning, or you'll feel like you're out of sorts for the day. And so listen to that and give yourself this easing into the day, slow time. It will really help set you up for a good day. Consistent meal times are important as well. When vata is aggravated, there can be a lack of appetite or a very short hunger window. So if there's a lack of appetite, it's important to stimulate the digestion by bringing in the fire element with the hot water I mentioned a moment ago, and just sipping on that hot water throughout the day. It's really great to stoke the digestive fire. And adding a slice of fresh ginger to that hot water will stimulate your appetite if you're not feeling hungry. It's extremely important not to ignore your hunger signals, and ideally moving towards getting the body into a regular eating schedule. The vata dosha does best with smaller meals that don't overwhelm the digestive system. However, these meals should consist of foods that contain the earth element. So grounding foods like root vegetables and grains and proteins and good fats, basically foods that look substantial on your plate. Unlike rice cakes, popcorn, and salads, which contain mostly the space and air elements and not much of the much needed earth element. The food should contain the water element also, with liquids and or good fats, which will also provide grounding qualities like ghee and sesame oil, olive oil, avocado. Good fats like that are great for grounding vata. The food should also contain the fire element with warming spices, not pungent spices, so no chili pepper or cayenne, but digestive spices, warming spices like black pepper, salt, fresh ginger, and cinnamon. These are great for stimulating the digestive fire, but they're not too pungent, they're not too stimulating. Avoiding highly processed foods basically where you don't recognize the ingredients on the label, as these will disturb your digestion, and focus more on the unprocessed, seasonal, local, and organic foods. Visiting your local farmer's market where you'll find foods with lots of prana, because most of the food there was probably just harvested either the day before or maybe a few hours before you've purchased them. You know the produce is local and seasonal, so that's the best place to source your really good prana-rich food, full of the earth quality. They just came from the earth. So really beneficial. And as I said, they're seasonal, so they will be in alignment with seasonal eating and keeping your doshas in balance. Bringing the fire element into your environment. So things you want to avoid are cold environment, moving air like fans or air conditioners, and choosing more the warm environment. And things like a regular steam are great because they have that warm and moist quality. So bringing in the fire and water elements. That's why Vata really does well in a humid tropical climate, because it's hot and moist. Again, bringing in the fire and water elements. Now, bringing the earth quality into your environment is also great to balance Vata. This can be done by heavy blankets on your lap while you're working or relaxing, and also in bed, really creating a cocoon for yourself. Having an area of your home where you can go to ground, whether that is cooking in your kitchen. For some people, that's a very grounding meditative practice, or a bath with Epsom salts, or a yoga meditation space, or an altar, or a space to be creative. Somewhere that's quiet and free from sensory overload. As I mentioned earlier, the Vata dosha, when aggravated, tends to go into future thinking, the what ifs, the worst case scenario. And this is where stress can manifest. So bringing the mind into the present moment will calm the body and mind. This can be done with the activities I just mentioned, or with pranayama. And the great thing about pranayama is you can do this in a quiet space at home, but you could also do this when you're out and about. If you're feeling stressed, if you find your mind spinning, you can slowly tune in on slowing down your breath and making the breath longer, the inhale and expiration longer. Pranayama is a wonderful tool that you can use at any time to bring yourself back into the present moment and calm the nervous system. So I hope this simplified information helps you. And as I mentioned before, I tailor this information to each person in my online consultations. So if you want further support, check out my online consultations. In the show notes, I'll put the link. I also have a lot more detail in my 28-day daily habits for holistic health program, which will help set you up to fully understand and incorporate Ayurveda into your life. And in this 28-day online program, it's self-paced. I go into detail on the circadian rhythms and help you set up your daily habits. I go into details about how to balance the mental qualities, how to understand the principle of opposites, and we talk about how to become your own healer and really understanding how to use this principle of opposites in your day-to-day life. And also I talk about connecting to your intuition and your true nature, which is really the path of Ayurveda, is the path of self-realization. So check out the link in the show notes or visit my website where you can find all the details on elements, healing, and wellbeing.com. Now, if you want to get certified in Ayurveda and dive deeper into the Ayurvedic principles of seasonal and daily practices, well, the sponsor of this episode, Kerala Ayurveda Academy, offers online and in-person training. Beginner certifications include topics like individual mind-body constitution assessment, nutrition, dinacharya, and yoga. And it's not too late to join the spring sessions. Learn more at keralaayurveda.us/courses. And to receive $100 off tuition, use the reference code ELEMENTS100 when you join a first level certification. Find out all the details in the show notes. Okay, so let's go back to my discussion on managing stress with Ayurveda. We've just discussed the Vata dosha, and we know that Vata is the most sensitive to stress and can easily go out of balance because it's made up of the space and air elements, which are very subtle. But that doesn't mean that Pitta and Kapha are not affected by stress. They certainly are. So let's talk about Pitta. The Pitta dosha, as we know, is made up of the elements of fire and water and dominated by fire. So when things get stressful, Pitta can really heat up and become more intense, which may result in intensity in working, exercising, being overly competitive, overheated emotions, becoming irritable, frustrated, and angry, and can sometimes be very explosive anger. Pitta can also get stressed due to the accumulation of Pitta at the end of summer during the transition into autumn, which is what's happening in the southern hemisphere right now. So that can lead to stress in the body too. All this heat and intensity can lead to things like heartburn, acidic stomach or acid reflux, loose stool or diarrhea, feeling like the mind is just too active to fall asleep, being over-analytical, over-critical, maybe having lots of perfectionist tendencies, and feeling that irritability, that impatience, the intolerance, quick to anger, feeling overly competitive, overly ambitious, and overworking, again, all that intensity, and overheating, and feeling burnout, feeling like you're just drained as well, but continuing with that intensity all the time and pushing yourself further. There can also be lots of inflammation in the body and on the skin, so inflammatory skin rashes or skin conditions. And there may also be headaches around the eyes, like sharp, intense pain as well. Now, in this case, we want to introduce the missing elements with Pitta. So the missing elements are space, air, and earth. And by introducing these three elements, that will help pacify Pitta. Therefore, bringing in more of the space and air elements, and this is going to literally look like going with the flow. Rather than being so disciplined and regimented with intense schedules, bringing in more fun activities, more downtime, more moderation, and just having fun. That's really important for Pitta. It sounds simple, but when Pitta is aggravated, it's all go, it's all intensity and competitive. So this can be a real shift in the energy and can really help to balance an aggravated Pitta. The cooling qualities of the space and air elements will help to pacify the heat of Pitta, and this could be introduced with foods that have cooling qualities like coconut, mint, cilantro or coriander. And all these foods are very cooling for Pitta. And avoiding intense flavors like spices, pungent spices, and stimulants like coffee. The space and air elements can also be introduced with pranayama. So to cool Pitta, the best one is the Shitali cooling breath. It's very effective for cooling, calming, and grounding Pitta. And the easiest way to do this is imagine you have a straw in your mouth and you're breathing in through the straw and you're taking in cool blue air into the straw. You're feeling that cool air across your tongue. And then you close your mouth and exhale all that heated, aggravated, intense air out of your nose. So you repeat that. And again, very simple, but very effective, especially if you're feeling that heat rise fast, which can happen when Pitta is aggravated in the heat of the moment and you feel you're about to be a bit explosive. Taking some time away to do a few rounds of Shitali cooling breath can be really beneficial. The earth element will really help to ground Pitta. And the earth element can be introduced with grounding foods and grounding activities. So that may look like massage, yoga, meditation, or walking barefoot on the beach, walking in the earth. Again, cooling activity, having that cool water coming on your feet and taking some time out, which is not purposeful. It's just for enjoyment. This time in nature will take Pitta out of its intense focused world just to be in the present moment in nature and get perspective so that you're not so focused on your stresses or what needs to be done or your goals or your competitions, but to see the bigger picture of life. And being in nature just really helps to calm the Pitta emotions. So they are some very simple tips of how to introduce the space, the air, and the earth elements to help Pitta. Now, moving on to the Kapha dosha, which is comprised of the earth and water elements, and so very grounded and stable, making Kapha very resilient to stress. However, Kapha is not immune to stress, and things can get stressful due to outside influences, and during the change of seasons in particular, from spring to summer, where there can be an accumulation of Kapha in the body at the end of spring. And this is what's happening right now in the Northern Hemisphere. So that can create stress in the body. And when Kapha is feeling stress and overwhelmed, it can manifest in feeling stuck and sluggish. So there's too much of that water and earth element creating mud, feeling like you're physically and mentally wading through that mud. It can show up in sluggish digestion and sluggish elimination, foggy mind, and the Kapha mind tends to go into the past, having a hard time letting go of things, really holding on to past memories and really wallowing in the past. Aggravated Kapha may also result in being stubborn or resistant to change, withdrawal from social activities, and suppressing emotions, which can really lead to emotional eating and then excess weight. It can result in feeling lethargic and a lack of motivation, maybe feeling inertia, like there's no desire to get up and go. And there can be also excess water retention, excess mucus and congestion in the body. Now, the Kapha dosha is lacking the elements of space, air, and fire. So by introducing these elements, we can help to pacify Kapha. And so introducing space and air elements with light foods, like sprouted foods, sprouted beans, sprouted grains, or even roasting your grains before you use them. Say, for example, oats. If you roast them in a dry pan, it will make them lighter. They have less of that heavy quality. Also, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage, they contain a lot of the space and air elements, so they are very beneficial for Kapha. But food also for Kapha needs to have the fire element to stimulate the sluggish digestive fire. So for Kapha, we want to introduce the fire element with digestive spices. Now, Kapha does very well with all spices and can handle the warming and the pungent spices. So have at it. As long as you don't have any of that pitta heat showing up, you can introduce digestive spices like pepper and ginger and garlic and chili and cayenne to really stimulate that Kapha dosha and stimulate all the systems of the body, making sure there's not that sluggishness in the digestion and elimination. And bringing in the space and air elements with activities and more movement. And ideally, Kapha does well doing exercise in groups because there can be that inertia there and that withdrawal. Getting out and making dates with friends to be out and about or going to a group fitness class can really inspire and motivate Kapha. Socializing and speaking about your emotions rather than suppressing them is best for Kapha. And the fire element can be brought in by creating heat in the body. So heat with the exercise, moving regularly, really wanting to stimulate Kapha, especially first thing in the morning when that Kapha time of day from 6 to 10 a.m. You should be up early. So the opposite of Vata, you want to be up before sunrise and moving the body and stimulating that Kapha dosha. Now, while exercising in the morning, as I said, is ideal for Kapha, you can also stimulate Kapha with vigorous breath practices like Kalabati breath, the breath of fire, or Bhastrika, bellows breath. Those intense practices are really great for stimulating Kapha. So there you go. There are some simple tips. And as I said earlier, I wanted to really simplify this information today. And I hope it helps you because the last thing you need when you're feeling overwhelmed by all the things going on is overly complicated information. And so in summary, Vata is balanced with structure, routine, and bringing in grounding practices. And we're introducing the fire, water, and earth elements into Vata. Pitta is balanced with cooling and calming routines and having more fun in life. And this is brought in with the air, space, and earth elements. And Kapha is balanced with more movement, lightness, and social activities. And this is brought in with the space, air, and fire elements. So as you can see from this information, there are many simple things you can do to support the body during times of stress with food, lifestyle, and self-care. And that will really help you to maintain balance physically and mentally. And this will provide the stable foundation. As I said earlier, when things are a little bit chaotic and feel out of control, this is where you need to really focus on your daily routines, your day-to-day habits, and your daily self-care practices, and make your own structure and foundation. And if you need support, please reach out and I can help you understand what you need for your current health status, for your unique constitution, and we can see if you have any current imbalance going on. And that means I can cut out all that excess information you don't need, cut straight to a tailored plan for you. So again, you can find the links in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please again, reach out if you have any questions. I always love to hear your feedback, and you can do that at info@elementshealingandwellbeing.com. You can also check me out on social media on Facebook and Instagram under Elements Healing and Wellbeing. And if you think this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do so. The new episodes will automatically download for you. And if you would like to rate and review the podcast, I would really appreciate that. Until next time, please take good care of yourself. Be well and bye for now. Slán go fóill.